My name is Maureen, and I'm CEO of an animation studio that does VR specifically called Baobab Studios. But before I go into that, I need audience participation as well. So please raise your hand if you consider yourself an athlete. That's a lot. You guys do a lot better than the VC crowd. How many of you are singer-songwriters? Okay. How about astronauts? One, right, and it's a lady, yes. So if you were 5 years old, you would have answered yes to all the above. So the question is, what happens from when you're 5 to when you become an adult that makes you less idealistic? Maybe someone told you your sculpture didn't look quite right in art class, or you had a tiger mom like I did, but something happens. But we believe that deep down inside every person, there's still a dreamer. And we know this to be true because it's why we all go watch the movies or create movies. It's to experience stories and characters beyond those that we meet in our current lives. But we think animation does this better than live action because live action is still constrained by reality versus animation is constrained only by the creativity within the director's head. And so the reason why we love animation in particular is because it is art in motion. It takes you to completely different worlds and makes you believe that they're so real that you think you could reach out and touch it. And those last two sentences, takes you to a different world and makes that world real, is the definition of virtual reality, which is why we think animation and VR were made for each other. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background and why I love animation in particular. So I went to Stanford and majored in computer science, art, and psychology, partly because I had a tiger mom. She wanted me over cheap. But because I wanted to be an animator. But my mom said that I'd be poor and destitute if I went into film. So instead, I went to eBay, where I was a UI designer for 5 years. But nights and weekends, I still went to De Anza because all the Lucasfilm animators would teach there. And I took figure drawing classes. After 5 years passed, I was like, that's it. I made my money from eBay. Now I can do my dream. I'm going to go to art school. The deadlines for art school had passed. And so round 3 of business school was still available. And Tiger Mom said, you should apply to business school. And I said, but I hate business. I don't want to go. But as a dutiful Asian daughter, I applied to business school, didn't think I'd get in, and I got in. And I was going to say no. I want to do film. I want to do animation. And my boss at eBay said, don't be an idiot. Don't just say no to Harvard without first trying film out. So I went to Hollywood. I emailed everyone in the Stanford alumni database that had anything to do with film and said, give me a job. And I ended up being assistant to Zach Braff and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's talent manager, and also script development, and realized that everything is a business at the end of the day, and ended up going to business school. So during my time at business school, I interned at Pixar on Toy Story 3 in the production team, and loved it, and learned about what it's like to create an environment that's great for creatives. But I really missed the startup life, because when I joined eBay, it was really in the early days, and I wanted to do something new. So when I graduated from business school, I went to Zynga right at the beginning in 2009 and stayed there for 6 years and became vice president of games, looking over the Farmville franchise and over 40% of the company's revenue. But I still really wanted to do animation. So nights and weekends, I worked on this short animated film called The Dam Keeper. How many of you guys have heard of that one? Should have won. But it was nominated for an Oscar last year and directed by Dice and Robert from Pixar, who I'd met during my internship there. And I was really excited. And the first time I put on a VR headset was at eBay. To be honest, I put on a live action headset. It was a normal headset, but I watched live action. It was a Paul McCartney concert. And I was underwhelmed. And the reason I was underwhelmed is all I could notice was the poor pixels and the poor resolution, because our standards for reality are pretty high, which is all around us, or HD TVs. So I was like, oh, this is okay. But when I put in animation and I saw that for the first time, I'm like, this is the future. Because we have complete suspension of disbelief when we're watching animation, and I didn't care about the pixels. I didn't notice them anymore. And the reason why I love animation is through that entire story that I talked to you about, there's this desire when you grow older to conform to societal values of fame, money, and fortune. For me, it was, are you a suit or are you creative? Even when I was at Pixar, I remember it was Ali Ragani. He was the CFO at the time. He was like, it's really difficult to make a film about rats who want to become chefs. Like, how do I market that? Or Wall-E, a half-silent film about robots falling in love. He's like, come be on the production finance side instead, and we can make this place more practical. When I want to be a producer, so the production people are saying, oh, don't mind the suits over there. We know the real creative stuff. And I was like, don't you see that you need each other, both the business side and the creative side? Is it possible to create a space where I can be both business and creative and not have to conform to one or another? And when I watch an animated film, it reminds me of what it is to be a kid and that 5-year-old again. When I'm there, I believe that anything is possible. The fact that I can believe that I can live underwater because of Finding Nemo, and I really believe that I can live underwater, is amazing. And the fact that I can believe that that is possible means I can believe that anything is possible. And I just think if I could get every person in the world to watch animation, it would bring about world peace. Because it means that everyone would realize what they are made of and try and go after their dreams. So the mission, I think, for VR and animation is ultimately to bring that 5-year-old in you back out, to inspire you to dream and bring out that sense of wonder again. And I think animation did that, and I think VR animation can do that even better. So I'm going to talk about interactive storytelling. How many of you have tried out a VR headset or have been in VR? Wow, okay. This is how we know it's definitely coming. That's about every single one of you. So the reason why we like storytelling, or we think storytelling is greatest strength, is it's the capacity to elicit profound emotional experiences through development of empathetic connections with characters within the story. That's a long-winded way of just saying, you know, it's the emotional experience that you now experience when you watch plays, when you even read a book, or you go to the theater, or you watch a movie. But in VR now, instead of watching it on a rectangular screen, you are inside that experience. Now, as a creator, you think, are you a floating head? Are you a ghost? Or are you a character in there? And this is a choice you have to make. And for us, we want to make you a character inside the film. And we were surprised with the learnings. So before I play this short clip, which is our trailer, I want you to imagine that you're all little bunny rabbits. That's really weird. Just bear with me. Now imagine you look down, you have a little bunny body, and when you squat, it becomes fatter, like you would normally do if you're a bunny, obviously. And imagine you can hop around. Now imagine you're seeing this now. Dark humor. All right, so this is supposed to be the star of the film, which are these little aliens. But how many of you like the bunny better instead? Yeah. So Eric Darnell, who directed all the Madagascar films, is my co-founder. And he made the story because he was watching War of the Worlds, and he's like, these aliens are kind of idiots if they couldn't figure out that like microbes in the environment would kill them, right? So let's take that even further. They couldn't anticipate the cute little bunny rabbits who would also thwart them. So he's like, let's push this even further in comedic value. And the only purpose of the bunny there was just to serve as, a foil and for comedy. But boy, were we wrong, and we learned this through VR. People fell in love with the bunny. And why? Specifically because of this scene, remember? When the bunny comes up to you, she sniffs you, she basically breaks the fourth wall. And when people do this, they actually stare at the bunny, they start cooing, they start talking to the bunny, and try to pet the bunny, and they're like, oh, it's super cute. But what's the big deal? Really, in film, you still sometimes break the fourth wall, like Deadpool recently did. But you have to remember that to the audience, it is not the same as breaking a fourth wall. You are in that environment. You have a bunny body. There's snow falling all around you. You can see it all around you. And that bunny really recognizes you. She's coming here to interact with you. You know the part where she's playing with you, kind of like she's a dog? People actually start bouncing around and pretending like they're a bunny too, interacting, feeling like that bunny is interacting with them the way they are interacting with them back. Now remember, in a game, you're pushing a button, right? Like, what do I need to do to get to the next level? Where do I need to go? But this feels like you're actually there. There's no button. The other animals, the little bunny is interacting with you the way she would normally in the world, if you were a bunny, of course. And some part of your animal brain believes that she's real and she knows who you are. And in fact, there's this one scene here, which I actually haven't, I think it was part of before, where she's hiding behind you. One person actually said, I know that that bunny's not there, but I could have swore I can feel the breath of that bunny behind me. And I was the only thing between that bunny and that alien. And I was the only thing protecting that bunny. And I love that bunny, and I'm going to do everything to save her, right? And so this belief that this is all real, that's huge. You have even more emotional experiences than you would have otherwise in a movie. So that's how we learned about the power of the bunny, which is, of course, just a metaphor for the power of VR. Right now, even watching in a dark room with a rectangle, you believe those characters are real. It makes grown men and women also cry, makes lovers clutch each other in their seats. It gets these strong emotional reactions from you. But now in VR, imagine that character believes you're real, and you are not just experiencing and seeing that story, you are living that story, and that is the power of VR. So what is the future of virtual reality? There's a lot of hype out there. To be honest, I'm really excited about VR, staked my entire career on it, but I do think it's going to take a lot longer than everybody says it is. There are a lot of headsets out there, but there's not enough content. So we need more storytellers to create this type of content so that there's reasons for people to come back over and over again. There's a question about, can you do composition in VR? I think Steven Spielberg recently said he was really worried because you can't control composition. But when that bunny came out and stared at you, 100% of the audience looks back at the bunny. It's very much like a magician, right? If you want the audience to look at you, you look at the audience. If you want the audience to look at something, you look at the other thing instead. And when the bunny looks to the right at the spaceship, you look to the right at the spaceship as well. You can inspire the audience to compose the shots that you would have wanted them to compose. But it better be interesting, because if not, they're going to look and watch the clouds roll by instead. So it's just being a good director, making sure there's something actually interesting for you to watch. And thinking about the future, we look to the past. So here are some of our mentors and advisors for our company. Alvy Ray Smith, co-founder of Pixar. Glenn Entis, co-founder of PDI DreamWorks Animation. Also Glenn Keane, who's I'm a big fangirl of his. And to them, they say that VR right now feels the same as it did in the very early days of CG, where no one knew what the hell they were doing. I'm up here trying to tell you something, but the first thing you should do is ignore everything I'm telling you, because it's really early in VR. It's too early to be saying what you can and cannot do. Right now is a phase of experimentation where we're merging art and science, the gaming world with the film world. Scrum, agile process from gaming, from the waterfall process of film. Everything needs to be built from the ground up, but we're excited that the holodeck is coming. It's going to come within my lifetime and before 2266, which is when Star Trek actually did start. So that is the power of the bunny, and I hope you guys all believe in VR and jump in with us and start this journey with us because it's the brand new medium and I think it's the future.